Hey, welcome everyone. This is the ComicBase live stream. I'm your host, Pete Bickford, and this is our 210th live stream. And as usual, we're still just careening into it, like with moments to spare, and I can't believe we ever pulled this off. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Thank you to our mod, Greg Hecht, who's I can see him back there. We didn't have a chance to do the sound check here. I'm hoping to God the levels are okay. So, anyway, hope everyone's doing well out there. We got a fun packed show here. This is our last one before Comic-Con. And I want to say hi to the folks here first. Oro Viejo in the house here from, sunny Minnesota. Mike Beam in the house from the Pacific Northwest. A little less sunny, apparently. Brian Stewart, not seen the Superman movie, but want to. Saw the next Jurassic Park, which I give 3.5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, cool. Good to know. D.A. Libby here from Roseville, California, and also saw Superman, really enjoyed it. Rob Weinberg from Toledo, Ohio. Tyler T. from Albany, New York. Not too far down from. I used to live in Ithaca when I was a kid. My dad ran the food service at Cornell University here, but yeah, it sounds like it's hot for everybody here, as well as Department of Comics down there in Northeast Florida, South Jersey. Got the feels like up to 98 degrees over there. Richard Scott out from the Pacific Northwest on PDX on fire at 96. So we're just doing the weather here. And Chris Fresel says it's only sunny in Philadelphia where he's at. All right, guys. Oh, in Denton, Texas. We're not even going to get into that one, but it's not dry. It's not the heat, guys. It's the heat. If you're living in Texas. Anyway, hi. We're out here in just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, out in Franklin here. We almost had the doggo on the dog cam. And it's his last chance to get away from that one because if I can put this up here so y'all can see, this is our brand new secret weapon here. This is an Ozbot Tail 2. This is about to do many things in the studio, including being a Dodger cam. He was in here earlier, and apparently it has actually built into it animal tracking. So yes, I can whip that into effect, and if we need to, get some viewers on the show here, we can just turn it on Dodger, and he will have nowhere to run. But he's safe for the moment because the special purpose micro HDMI cable that goes to this thing to allow me to hook it into the board, which is this little teeny hole right here. It's about half the size of a micro USB. Yes, they've invented a cable standard that's even more annoying than mini HDMI. It's micro HDMI, and to make things even more fun, not only is it a standard no one has, is not included with the camera, of course. Come on, don't be silly. But my plan is, the reason I got this one is not just for the studio, but also to use this in San Diego when we do the show. The idea is if I can mount this on a tripod, then in theory I can steer it from the podium with this little remote here, assuming it doesn't lack onto me. Just I guess if you hold up your arm like and does the I'm turning right signal, or I'm swearing a oath on the Bible, apparently it's supposed to at that point follow you wherever you go. Which actually is doing it, swiveling around to me. But anyway, that the theory is that I can put this in the audience up on a tripod, do my thing up on stage, and with a camera crew of none, I might be able to film the thing for everyone. That is the ComicBase user group meeting. That'll be Thursday at 10 over in the Marriott Ballroom D. Hope you guys, if you're coming to the show, I hope you can make it. It's usually a lot of fun. We have not done it for a number of years, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone again in person. And I plan to reveal many surprising things. I hope to make it worth your while to show up. So anyway, that is what I'm going to be up to. And while I'm doing this, I'm also trying to push the my part of the update. Mark, if you're listening to the show, you can proceed with the rest of it. We're good to go. Yeah, we have a few balls in the air right now. Anyway, so okay, so Department of Comics is out. Yes, Pete's going to do this in order. Department of Comics is out of my reach this year. Gregory Hector, it says Pete's going to reveal the Epstein files at SDCC. Yeah, I can't even afford to get kicked out of Mar-a-Lago, much less go to private parties and whatever the hell he was up to. I couldn't afford to be any part of it. My big spend for the year is Comic-Con, and honestly, nothing that I can get up to with any costume clad figurine probably rates anything like the attention that those things were getting. So God only knows. All right, guys. So in other notes of things, all right, so yeah, it is up in the air. Oh, I'm sorry. The thing I meant to say about the annoying standard. So micro HDMI. Not only is the cable no one has, I'm going to get my first micro HDMI cable sometime between now and like 5/15, according to Amazon. But they're delivering not only the one I need to test it out on my local board to actually see what the video looks like from this thing, but they're also delivering the 50-foot fiber optic cable I'm going to need, because with this thing out in the audience, of course, HDMI has too much signal attenuation, and it can't go all the way up to where I'll be recording from. And so I of course, will have to, you have to use exotic standards to make that happen. So good grief, guys, nothing is simple. So anyway, we're going to try to make that happen. All right, so the weekly update is coming out today. That's the good news. We kicked off the first part of it today. We are featuring a big clean out of item descriptions. So we're going to be standardizing our editions, cover letters, and so forth. So whenever there's a newsstand edition, instead of just counting on it, just saying /NS, if you actually have the item description field visible in your grid, you should be able to just look straight down that and see, what's the deal with all the cover A's, cover B's, etc. We've done a lot to standardize the formatting of those. So we're really trying to lock that in, so we kind of have one nice clean standard for all of that. And I think when we ran it the first time, there were something like 149,000 changes to formats on those things. So yeah, expect this update to take a little bit longer than most when you download it this time out. But let us know what you think about it. We think it helps a lot, but definitely interested in your opinion. All right, other things that are going on today. So the big news in the comic market. Well, there's two bits of big news. Just by show of hands, you guys want happy, fun news, or news first? I'll take the first thumb that comes my way. Let's see here. Gregor Heck says item description concept's been kind of like the Wild Wild West. Kind of good to see that cleaned up. So if you guys don't know what item descriptions are, those are. We introduced them a while back, a version or two ago, a very useful field. What it was is it's the field that tells you why a particular variation is that variation. So is it, variation because it's the Zuniga cover? Is it the variation B because it's the foil stamped premium prototype, whatever, green hollow foil, spot varnish, whatever cover. But it's the thing that, like I say, tries to tell you why that cover, why that variation is that variation, and it's not the other one. So we introduced it a while ago because we needed to have like a definitive source of truth. We used to do that stuff in the notes field, and the problem with the notes field is the notes field is owned by you, and so we can put stuff into it, but if we ever change it, it just stacks on top of what was there before. And so we needed, when variants really just became absolutely psychotic, we need a field that was ours to control, that lets us say, no, this is definitively why the B edition is the B edition, and so that we can control that as the source of truth if you allow us to make changes to your update during the content updates, which I hope you very much do. But the formatting of that was a little loosey-goosey beforehand. So we're trying to lock this down and stamp it down there. We had a big meeting with editorial, which I can bore you about if you're interested, to kind of go through all the cases we could think of and sort of get them all straightened, because I was tired of going round and round on this. So, okay, and it looks like, okay, so let's be happy. So we're going with happy news first. So the happy news first is, I'm going to give this like a half thumbs up. It depends how you feel, but at least it's not the downer news. The happy news is, the big news in the comics market is we have a new player in the comics grading game. So if any of you guys ever have your sports cards or your collectible figures or anything, or your video games graded, you might be familiar with a very, very big player in the market called PSA. No clue. I even looked all over the site as to what PSA stands for. I mean, it's a closely guarded secret, apparently. Not even on their company page will they tell you. But been going since 1991, at the kind of like the dawn of people getting into the grading of things game. They were the guys who will grade your Pokemon cards, your sports cards, and whatnot else. And they apparently felt that they were missing out on being part of the comics market, and so they decided, as of pretty much now, to enter. I think probably be making a big show of it at Comic-Con, but they are apparently just opening to submissions just now. Beyond that, they look like everyone else. It's the standard. Take your comic, ship it away to them, with a whole, combined with a check for a whole bunch of money. They will, stick it in a plastic, nigh indestructible thing with a sticker on top that tells you what grade it is, as evaluated by their professional graders. No big when the other comic grading companies got into the deal, comic grading was a novel market back then, and it a lot rested in the credibility of the people who were doing the grading. And so there were people like Steve Borak, who famous as a comic retailer and dealer and a fair playing guy, all things considered, but a guy who you would know his VF pluses from his NM minuses. And he famously was one of the people who was brought in to get CGC into the market. Later on, get disaffected with things and formed CBCS, a competing one. Other people have come into the market later on. There's EGS, there's PGX, and now there's PSA. And there might be others. I don't know. But they all kind of have the same game. Some charge a little bit less fees. Some charge a little bit more fees. All of them seem to do things that I got to say are a little sus. Like, for instance, running their own cleaning and pressing services as well. So you can send your books in with a slightly bigger check than usual, and they'll be like, oh, well, before we grade it, of course, we could also clean out all the dents and do things like that. Before we seal it forever in a polycarbonate shell where you'll never be able to inspect our work yourself, but you'll be able to see that we think we did a hell of a job, as evidenced by the slightly better than you thought you would have otherwise have gotten grade that we've now sealed along with the comic forever inside it. Yep. Nothing sus about this whole thing whatsoever. But anyway, PSA is going to be entering this market right now. A couple new wrinkles on that one. One is they're a huge name in sports card and collectible action figures and so forth grading. By the way, one of the things that went under with Diamond was the CGA Collectibles Grading Authority. I'm going to guess I don't know what the A stands for, but yes, Diamond themselves also ran their own grading game. They did everything except comic books, apparently. So I never had much dealing with them myself, but that just got bought up by, I believe, Skyrush Associates as part of the bankruptcy deal. So if you follow the grading companies, there's a bunch to choose from. In comic books, it was kind of, CGC was, it was the name everyone got to know, in which I guess everyone got very familiar with. CBCS was a strong, competitor based on Steve Borak and his, personal credibility on that one. And also, as things will do over time, various scandals have taken place over the years with CGC. Employees going and stealing grading slips and swiping comics and things like that. But it's I've given my thoughts on grading services at length other times. So I don't want to get into that one way or another. I do think it's probably good for the consumer to have more choices when there's only one player in the game and they are the people supplying all the golden tickets in the field. The incentives to do bad things have to be overwhelming. So I would say, in general, probably a good thing when there's more people who are trying to put their best foot forward. Competition tends to bring out the best in an industry. Lack of competition tends to bring out utter corruption. So who knows? Maybe we're hitting critical mass where we can tamp down some of the worst aspects of the scene. Maybe not, but I regard it by and large, if you're integrating things, probably is good news. But that being said, I have no personal experience with the folks involved in this one. I do not know if they're putting forward any particular, claims of expertise in the comic field. They're just kind of like, from reading their website copy, it's kind of like, well, we're PSA. You trust us with all the other stuff, so trust us with comics too. And I'm a little worried that they're talking about on their site about having a custom numeric scale. I say, well, yeah, numeric scales are very common and everyone understands them, but gosh almighty, comics are very difficult, and so we think we want to have a different numeric scale ourselves. But they weren't commenting at great length about how theirs was different. One thing I do know we don't need in the world is different numeric scales, so that one person's 9.6 is another person's 9.4 is another person's 9.8. That crap cannot help anything. So whatever they're doing, I hope they're sticking by what basically comes down to the Overstreet grading guide. And if they're not, then at that point, then it's going to be utter chaos. So if you guys have heard anything else, please let me know in the comments, and we'll take it from there. Want to say hi to Ed, who's joining us here. Let's see here. The comments have been going while I've been yapping about here. Department Comics, professional sports authenticator. Oh, I guess that would explain why they were playing down what the PSA stood for. So I guess maybe that's the thing that tells you whether or not this alleged Willie Mays baseball is really from Willie Mays, which would be great if so, because I heard some number like 80% of sports memorabilia on eBay is basically fake. But I don't have a way of knowing that one way or another. But again, incentives being what they are, I would believe that anything that wasn't authenticated by someone else, I would definitely treat it as highly sus. Anyway, Department of Comments says, heard there's some rich guy poaching comic graders to start his own grading company. Could be. Who knows? All right. Richard Scott says, if you hadn't mentioned the update was longer, I would have wondered what was up. Dial up? Yeah, no, it's not it's not that. We haven't actually pushed the update yet. We pushed kind of like a test update earlier this week. If you were one of the people who jumped on things when I was doing my test late 2 nights ago, then you probably got most of what's going to be changing. But yeah, you will see that there's a lot of stuff that is changing things in the log file on. It's going to be pretty impressive. But yes, we're taking all the things that say, like, instead of Brian Jones cover B by Brian Jones, whatever all the others. We're trying to make them so that they all read one way now. So hopefully that will get people more on the same page. Hopefully it'll actually get people clued into what the standard is, so that when you send a correction, there's less work for the editorial guys. And it's just you just scan down the list. We do things like making sure that, say, if something's a 1 in 10 cover or a 1 in 25 cover, that's right at the front of the listing, as opposed to like buried somewhere back in the list of things on the item description. Anyway, so basically doing a lot of cleanup. All right, so other things going on. Yes, someone's different comments says, graded comics no longer comics, they're trading cards. Well, they are reduced to a front and a back, I'll say that. Let's see here. Yes, the people that originally came up with grading say that they're not supposed to be that critical. I don't know what you're paying for that. Well, actually, I do know what you're paying for. But again, I want to keep this somewhat positive, so we'll take it from there. All right. So other things going on in the world today. So I guess so. This gets into the news. Well, I guess the other one was the meh news. I'm going to say the full-on bummer news, which is the Diamond bankruptcy proceedings. They are continuing, and as of press time now, so subject to change, because things can change, as we all know if we've watched the court lately. But the bankruptcy court is due to hear petitions on Monday, which is to say, the Monday that's right before Comic-Con starts in Baltimore, as to whether or not the Diamond Comics new owners, Alliance Distribution, Ad Populum, whether or not they're allowed to sell the inventory that was held in Diamond's inventory, which wasn't Diamond's. It was just held on consignment by groups like Titan and Fantagraphics and Magma and and so many others. But whether they were allowed to sell that without any compensation to the people who actually had those books as a way of paying down the debts. Now, this has actually been an interesting topic of conversation on the internal ComicBase Slack boards. And Magma Publishing put their copy of their distribution deal up for review, so you actually could read the deal they had with Diamond. And I am not a lawyer. I'm just not a lawyer. So I mean, I've certainly written or had part in writing, and certainly signed on to my share of contracts over the years. But I gotta say, in my non-lawyerly way, I find nothing at all to justify the claim that the folks are making that you can just seize their inventory, particularly if you haven't given certain of the grounds for doing so. There's two clauses in Section 11 of the distribution agreement which might conceivably be tortured into a thought saying, well, it's ours now, needed to pay debts and stuff. But honestly, a clear reading of those, to my mind at least, says that none of the preconditions have been met for those to happen. I mean, Diamond has to basically have given them a 60 days notice of saying, yeah, we're out, we've been bought out, you're out of business, go get your stuff. And giving them 60 days notice to quit, to get out of their other warehouses. Nobody as part of the proceedings has made any claim that they've done anything of the sort. And then there's also talk in Bleeding Cool was Rich Johnston, who's doing a lot of reporting on this one, found an old antiques case, which somebody seems to think might be on point, saying that, well, they haven't perfected their interest in the remaining inventory, and screw it, we're selling it off to pay the debts. I honestly, it seems torturous to get there. But if any of you guys are lawyers and would like to have a look over the contract and tell me what you think, man, I would love to give you a forum. Honestly, I would have you on the show. So please, if so, reach out to me, pbickford@human-computing.com. And if you have, I know we have lawyers amongst the crowd, and if any of you have experience in contract law in particular, and especially anything having to do with Maryland contract law, please let me know if there's anything you see. But as far as I can tell, they haven't got a damn leg to stand on in this claim that we want us to take your stuff, other than we're big, you're little, and you have to come here to say we can't. So anyway, Image, Fantagraphics, any number of people at this point have all joined forces to all file motions saying, it's our stuff. You're not allowed to take it. By the way, would you mind moving the date a little bit, because Monday's a little hard for us. Unfortunately, the date they're suggesting, and I don't know what's going on with this one at all, but particularly Image is saying, the date that would work so much better for us in terms of like being in town to help contest the motion and everything is Thursday, as in like the first full day of Comic-Con. I don't understand the world anymore, people. So anyway, that's the news as we are hearing it at the moment. Let's see. Greg Heck says it isn't ad populum looking to sell the consigned items. It's the trustee for Old Diamond. Possible. That is a distinction. I'm not sure what the difference is in this case, but again, that's one where I'm going to say yes, somebody with more of a legal degree than I have should clarify the standing of who's got what, where, when, and how at this point. Is I'm assuming this means that it's not Jeppy trying to do this one, but the trustee for Old Diamond, again, having never been through a dissolution of a large bankruptcy, I cannot comment on this one. But let's just go ahead and put a flag on the play on this one as far as who's driving. I think that's probably fair. Anyway, either way, I gotta say, it seems like an absolutely raw deal for anyone who entrusted their stuff, and I don't know how this is anything other than an inventory grab, but please, and if you have a legal background and would like to chat in, please, love to chat. All right, cool. All right, so let's see here, and other things going on in the universe. All right, so I had one big request that we had. Ooh. Oh, this is actually kind of interesting. Sorry, the mod saying, put me in, Coach. I can explain it. And there's now in StreamYard some brand new controls here, which I might be able to pull stuff like this to do impromptu stuff with the backstage people, which just popped up because I clicked randomly in my control, but I'm going to say right now, I'm going to keep this one going. I'm assuming we've covered it in enough talk for now, and we're going to move on. But anyway, interesting. Guys, after Comic-Con, I'm definitely going to have to explore StreamYard a bit more here because they've been adding stuff. All right, so other things going on in the universe. So we've had a request from a couple people, as well as our own tech support folks, to talk about pictures. And so let me flip over to the demo screen over here. And in particular, talking about how do you take care of moving pictures from one computer and another computer. So the gentleman in question who started this one was basically he had an old laptop and he was wanting to move a jillion pictures onto his new computer, and was struggling on how to do it. I'll give you the old method and the new method. We'll actually do this in kind of reverse order. So the folks who took the call, who afterwards said, "Oh man, spent forever doing this one. Can you talk about something on the live stream?" And so I agreed to do it. We're basically going through the process of like, okay, so let's assume I've got a jillion pictures on an old drive, another computer, and I want to move them to the new computer. So where that situation is, well, let's back up a little bit and let's talk about where do all these pictures come from. So if I'm looking at, say, the Adventures of Mighty Mouse over here, and I want to look at, if I right click and say show picture file, what you'll see is that these are living inside a series of deeply nested directories on my disk, which start, let me go ahead and make this window a little bigger so we can see the whole thing. So if I look at this one, so this is The Adventures of Mickey Mouse by St. John Publishing, and you will see that this lives in, if we go back to the beginning, it's C users. Let me zoom in a little bit. Come on, you can do the zoom. I know you can. Here, let the magnifier again. Come on. Magnify. Oh, sorry. Okay. So let's look at this path here. It's C, users, public, documents, human computing, pictures, S, St. John, Adventures of Mighty Mouse, first series, and then all the pictures are, named after the issue numbers in the cells. So, but the important part is all your stuff lives in basically the public documents folder of your drive. If you guys ever look out on the C, on your C drive, you'll see that there's a folder in there called users with a number of different users. C users public is the ones that are shared amongst all the users of your computer. You'll probably also see like C users, in my case, P Bickford or P Bick or something like that. That's the user you logged in as when you were on your machine. Public documents are the ones that, like, let's just say that you've got the same computer and you share it with your wife and your kids and things like that. They all got things. They'll all have their individual user folders, but anything you put in the public documents, everyone on the computer has access to. So that's where ComicBase by default installs pictures, because my goodness, if you install a jillion pictures and your kid also wants this collection of other things, you don't want to install those pictures twice. So they go out in the public storage by default. Now you're free to change those, but that's where we put them by default. Now inside public documents, we make a nice little folder called Human Computing, because that's the name of our company. And then we make a folder called Pictures, because these are pictures. Okay. From there, the story of the pictures folder, and let's hear it. And by the way, there's a little trick you can do here is if you go click up here in this whole thing, backspace out and just hit return, it'll navigate you straight to that folder. So here's the pictures folder inside that hierarchy, and you'll see that we have pictures named after number. That's for all the publishers whose names start with numbers of one sort, like first, second, 01 comics, number one comics, etc. and then ABCD3 EFG, blah 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 blah, with a the odd diacritical, apparently E with an accent over it. If you're French, counts as a different letter entirely. So, éditions de pastique, pastèque, yes. And I can already feel the Belgians and French-speaking folks writing in right now to say, yeah, your accent is horrible. Yeah, I get it. Okay, but anyway, but the first letter of the publisher name is done there just as a grouping, because we don't want to have 70,000 entries in, actually I think it's only about 9,000 individual publishers, but we don't want to have them all in one big folder. So when we go to the thing, here's the pictures. In this case, St. John would be S. And then here's all the publishers whose name starts with S. As you can see, there's a lot of them. If we go down to S, Saint Anthony, Saint Ives, Saint Eve, Saint John, and then Adventures of Mighty Mouse first series right there, and then there's our pictures, right? So that's where the pictures live, right? So more than you ever want to know about where those things are. If they're anywhere other than that, it means you move them someplace unusual, and it's up to you to remember where those are, because we don't know where you put them at that point. But if you put them in some place where ComicBase knows where they are, let me go ahead and close this window. Sorry, I gotta make it smaller. I'm gonna unzoom here so I can actually see my whole window. Okay, all right, but you're allowed to put them anywhere you want. That's where they're put by default. But if you go to File Tools, come up under here and say Manage Pictures and Movies, you can put them anywhere you darn well want. You can choose where the pictures and logos go. By default, C, Users, Public, Documents, Human Computing, and then pictures will be in the pictures folder, logos be in the logos folder, etc. You can put media. So if you keep a huge library of digital comic books and media and film clips and things like that, which you can tie in with ComicBase just by dragging and dropping, but that media folder could be conceivably quite large. I know people who, by methods that I'm not going to question, have gigabytes upon gigabytes of digital comic books that they like to store, and you can associate them in with ComicBase. So when you're reading, say, the Fantastic Four, if you've dragged those things in there, they'll get the individual comic will get stored in your media folder, again organized the same way by publisher and whatnot, and you'll see a little icon in ComicBase right next to its entry. It looks like a play button, so if you're sitting there and you hit play next to a Fantastic Four #1, from my case, for instance, it'll pull up the digital comic of Fantastic Four #1. Kind of neat. But those libraries can be kind of large, and there are probably good reasons to keep them someplace other than your C drive if your C drive is limited in space in any way. So that's where this stuff is all handled. If you don't see your pictures, or if you put them someplace else, look inside File, Manage Pictures and Movies, see if you can figure out where you put them, and so forth. A very common problem, unfortunately, and this is like the curse of anything which is configurable, is that there will be people who will make large libraries of things and put them in to ComicBase. So I will have a terabyte of pictures and media and everything that I've collected over the years, and then I will do something. I will reset my preferences. I'll reset my computer back, or do something else. I'll get crazy one day and decide I'm going to finally organize my computer, and I change a bunch of folder names, whatever the thing is. But if ComicBase ever can't find your media folder, it's going to go looking where you told it was. But if it's not there anymore, you're going to see that where once you had pictures, you now have blanks, because the pictures are not where you told them they were before. So if that ever happens to you, just a practical tip, unfortunately, all the pictures tend to have names like 1.jpg, 2.jpg, 3, they'll be named whatever the picture is. If you ever need to go hunting around, like if you've ever just, you had your pictures here, but you've lost track of them, you don't know where you put them, the thing I would do is I would go looking for the name on your computer of the weirdest title that exists for sure. Like, I don't know, start with just something like Daredevil, right? Or Deadpool, right? Unless you collect a lot of Deadpool imagery or something like that. I would think that in general, if I were to search my computer for the word Deadpool, I would probably find the folder which contains Marvel's Deadpool, and from there I could look at where it was and say, oh yeah, that's where I stuck them. And at that point, what you want to do is you want to go back in ComicBase once you figured out that, oh yeah, I moved them, is just go back and say File, Manage File Tools, sorry, slow mousing for some reason when I switch this screen. And then when you go up there is go ahead and change this, hit this folder icon and choose the folder which contains the pictures folder, not the pictures folder. You want to click the folder which contains your pictures folder. Very important. And at that point, you'll suddenly see your pictures will all magically appear and stuff like that. Now, as a practical matter, because let's face it, life is short, and who has the time to spend a lot of time managing stuff that just causes trouble sometimes? I have a couple of rules for myself. One is if I don't have to put them someplace else, I stick them in the default location. It just makes things easy. So whenever I'm installing pictures on a new computer, they, for reasons I'll get into these days, they don't take that much room anymore. And so there's really no reason for me to put them anyplace other than the default location. So when I'm setting up a new computer, I will just basically use the defaults, and then that way when it goes looking for them, it's always going to look at the default location. And I don't need to remember anything else extra. It's not a big deal to worry about. And by the way, if you forget what is the default location, you always just come over here and hit this reset button, and it will reset it to the default location. And that will get you there. The other thing these days, and this is where I would differ from the other guys who took the call in this case. Well, actually, let me back up a little bit here because I'm going to head off a thought before it's been completed. The question this guy had is, first of all, he'd lost his pictures folder, so then they had to go hunting for that. But then when they found it, they're like, okay, we now have a jillion pictures we need to move from one computer to another computer, which can be time-consuming, not to mention a pain in the butt. If you were to have taken like an old version of ComicBase or like the Blu-ray or something like that, and you'd been collecting all the pictures over all the versions that have ever happened, you could have 100 gigabytes worth of pictures. I mean, if you downloaded everything and never looked back, which is a lot of pictures. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. And you would need to find a reasonably beefy, the easiest way to do it is get a USB stick, just one of those little USB thumb drives. I keep one on my keychain. It's right here. But basically get one of these guys here, stick it in your drive. It'll appear as like, your U drive or your Z drive or something. Copy your pictures folder onto that, and then copy from your USB drive onto, eject it, then take it over to your new computer and copy it over to the same place you'd put it. And I'd strongly suggest use the default folder, C, users, public, human computing, pictures, and drag it there. And then once all those things are copied, if you open up ComicBase on the new machine, you'll see all your old pictures. That is a definite thing you do. And now here's why I would never do it. So, and I'll stipulate, if I had scanned a lot of high resolution scans of like my comics, like, I really want to know that this is my personal copy of Marvel Voices #1. There are many like it, but this one is mine, right? This one's actually being used for barcode scanning testing, which is why it's on my desk. I feel a need to explain that somehow. Anyway, but if I had custom pictures I had to preserve, then yeah, I would go through the trouble of marking them over. If I didn't have custom pictures of my own that I wanted to preserve, I would just skip the whole business and just let ComicBase do it. It's just easier. So what that looks like is you would just go over to ComicBase on the new machine, just right after you installed it. It probably would, if you installed ComicBase new, it probably would have actually prompted you to do this right when you started. It said like, hey, I don't see any pictures here. By the way, you're entitled to download a whole bunch of pictures. Would you like to do that now? And then just click yes, and then it would download all the pictures. But for whatever reason, like let's say I started up and that had not happened for me, or I just wanted to do it again, just come up under here, say file tools, and right where we did manage pictures and movies, look down at the bottom here, and there's a couple buttons that say reinstall pictures. And then the bad version of this is install from disk. Now, why would I say install from disk is bad? It's because, all right, reinstall pictures does something pretty darn cool, which is to say it goes up to our servers and it downloads very nice quality copies at about 800 pixels tall, so pretty tall. It's if you're looking at a 96 DPI monitor, just slightly smaller than the physical comic itself. So if you're doing this, you're looking at the picture on a 96 DPI monitor, it would be about this tall. So not a bad view whatsoever, and in very decent quality on that. But it would do that for all the number ones, and then for all the other issues, all 1.1 million issues that we have pictures of for in ComicBase. It would install a little thumbnail. It's about 256 pixels tall, which is actually not a bad size. You definitely can see what cover is which off of that one, unless there's some incredibly subtle thing. But if you're trying to figure out, is this the red holofoil, blood-stained, gore drip version of Vampirella number 6, or is it the spot varnish cover, stuff like that? You can tell that from the thumbnail. But the other thing that's beautiful about that is it installs these 1.1 million thumbnails in several minutes. But it's like a matter of minutes, and it at the cost on your disk space of only about 10 gigabytes for 1.1 million pictures, which is great. So that is a terrific thing of it gives me the preview that I can see in the grid, and it does it in not too much time to download, and with very much not too much disk space. But then it does one other really cool thing, which is to say, and I'll show this one now because this one is actually working out this way. So whoops, let me back out, find the right keys to unzoom here. So for instance, The Adventures of Mighty Mouse over here. Let's have a look at these ones here. So let's look up, if I can find view, and I might have done these before, so I apologize. But okay, so look at these file sizes, right? These are teeny, 7 kilobytes, 3 kilobytes, 8 kilobytes, right? There's one that's considerably larger, but these are little teeny files, right? So you sit there and say, well, that can't be a very good picture, is it, right? So, and you're looking at the grid, and no, these are just fine for the grid, right? But look what happens as soon as I click on one, right? As soon as I click on one, magic happens is that it went out to the server and pulled down the highest res picture we've got of the St. John series, which unfortunately I'm going to say for Adventures of Mighty Mouse, maybe not the best way to show this one off, because most of the ones that we've got for more contemporary series are considerably better pictures. Because I don't think personally anyone in-house had a copy of Adventures of Mighty Mouse, so we're probably relying on submissions from somebody who had some other ones. But let's see, I don't know. Oh, here we are, Marvel from Marvel. So let's have a look at this one. So let's go to issue number 3 of this one, and these are beautiful, right? And as fast as I can click on them, these are the 4K images in my case of these ones, and they're downloaded as needed. So the second before I downloaded them, this 3A here is occupying about 8 kilobytes on my disk, and now the second I click on it, boom, that swoosh you saw there, it just downloaded the 4K image in, honestly, at a higher quality than we could have ever fit on the discs, even the Blu-rays. So that, if you're looking at the fine points of these things, and you're looking for moire patterns and color banding, like JPEG artifacting and stuff, we can serve them up to you over the internet at a much higher quality than we ever can fit on the Blu-rays even. So for the best quality, I mean, if you just like having the best looking pictures in your collection and you don't want to take up all the disk space in your world on pictures that you haven't ever looked at, at that point, then the install from the web is definitely the way to go. And the fact that it involves not having to haul things on off of USB drives and all the other stuff like that, yeah, definitely the way to go. It's so much the way to go that when you install ComicBase, just, like I say, as soon as you install the program, we say, oh yeah, by the way, we have these pictures here. Would you like them? We'll install them in the background, be a few minutes, and then you're good to go. And then we just kind of set up that whole thing where the second you click on anything or you touch anything in any way, you just, the act of glancing at it is enough to get it to download the full version. But even then, you sit there and say, like, okay, with 1.1 million pictures, if I spent 1.1 million seconds, I'm going to look at every picture for 1 second. you don't have this much time in your life. You're never going to do it. So why take up all the disk space? Why, burden your computer with something that you physically can't do? Whereas if you actually just let the program ride, I mean, like I've had this feature in ComicBase for a couple of years now. My main computer that I will have this thing on over that time, and I use ComicBase literally every day of my life. Maybe not Christmas, but wouldn't rule that out some years. But anyway, but it's one of those things where like. So I beat the hell out of this program. It's downloaded about 36 gigabytes worth of full res pictures in all that time, which is to say I probably downloaded personally over 100,000 images, just by clicking and doing things with the program over the course of several years. But that's a lot less than 1.1 million. It's a lot less than the 250 or so gigabytes you would need if you were to actually to download the full-size versions of everything. So why blow the space is kind of what it comes down to. So that would be my advice to you if you're coming in on that sort of thing. If you do, again, and this is all moot, if you do have like customized pictures of like, just really great pictures of stuff that is personal to you, yeah, we don't have that picture, we can't replace that. Yeah, sure, copy your picture over. And one other trick is if you copy your picture over, make sure you scanned it at a ludicrous size so that we will never download a larger picture. Then we will never overwrite that picture either. So if you're doing something like that, go nuts. Go ahead and scan that sucker at 600 DPI if you want. Make we do have a guy who's sending in. I don't know. I mean, God bless you, man. We appreciate all you guys who are sending us submissions. But there's a guy like sitting in like 8,000 pixel tall copies of things, which is swell. I mean, it's like a 16K image of ComicBase. This is where I hate to be killjoy on this one. But I mean, because again, I love the idea that technology marches forward, and high, we used to call them high-res monitors, which was 640 by 480. Those suddenly became, high definition monitors. We changed the name there, and those things became full high definition, which is 1080 by 1080 pixels, so forth in wide. And then those gave way to UHD or 4K monitors, which are 4K, was it 3820 wide by 2160, something like that for the dimensions. But I mean, so I've been to the trade shows where I've seen 8K TVs. It's fantastic. So if you happen to have and the way to demonstrate an 8K monitor to make anyone care about it is not to do the usual thing where you show a picture of like an insanely high resolution picture of Tokyo at night, showing in perfect clarity all the buildings of like 8 square miles. That's the way you show off these things. Usually for these things, the way you actually sell an 8K monitor, if you want to get someone to buy it, is take a picture of the front page of in folded out uber tabloid style of the front of the Tokyo, Gazette or something like that. It's just some high resolution printed piece of material which physically is this wide, right? Because at that point, you can look at that and say, my God, this is, it's like I'm reading the paper. It is that sharp. The problem is if I take a greater than 4K image of this guy right here and I blow it up so it's 8K wide, all I've done is I've invented pixels that weren't there, because when they had to put the ink on the paper, there's actually a resolution to paper. I know we all think of paper as continuous, and to some extent, yes, we're blobbing ink on and things like that. But yes, we do actually have printing technology. It is all digital. The thing that ink is going to squish its way through is going to be a computer rendered mesh. Formed by a photographic plate, but the holes in that mesh are going to have a certain resolution to them, and in addition, the paper itself, after a while, it just sort of globs together if you try to go further than that, which is why they don't. So when they print with what's called a line screen, and a line screen for something very, very high res will have like a 200 line screen, or sometimes even crazy, like for the highest resolution art prints ever, a 300 line screen, which means it has an effective resolution of 600 DPI. That's 600 dots per inch. So 600, counting up, 10 inches tall. Well, okay. The highest that anyone has ever printed anything pretty much on the planet has had 6,000 pixels for 10 inches in height. Trust me, Marvel does not print these at a 600 DPI line screen. No, they print them. Most stuff gets printed at like a 133 line screen, which means it's like sometimes 150, which means an effective resolution of 266 or 300 DPI. If you're scanning higher than that, you're inventing pixels. I mean, somewhere, I think, have I got it? So I'm looking at my desk drawer here, which, oh god, what a mess. Anyway, yeah, sorry. Oh, yes, I do. Yes, here we have it. Yes, buried underneath things next to my Pantone guide and all the other things which, if you ever do 4-color printing, you need, and it's very expensive. There's all these little artifacts of doing pre-press work in the real world. You know, I'll show you 2 of them because it's kind of fun. So at some point back in the 90s, I bought myself very expensively. I've lost the cover page for this, unfortunately. My Pantone 4-color swatch book. And what this is on every one of these swatches is there's the color you want, and right next to it is the color that you can get to if you print with 4 colors. And you'll notice a couple things about this. This is kind of interesting printer tech if you want. So it's said that you can print anything with 4 colors. They've said this by idiots who've never printed things. Because yes, if I want to print, if the 4 colors I'm going to print with are cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. For some reason, I guess because, B would have looked like blue, which is, a lot like cyan. They say K for the black. And one thing you'll notice by looking through the Pantone swatch book here is there's certain colors, but they're not particularly close to each other as far as, this is the spot color, for this purple right here. It has a Pantone number. And then the process color, this is as close as we can get by mixing up different versions of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. That's as close as we can get to making that color happen. Now, through most of the pictures, it's not wildly off. I mean, you sit there and say, okay, these purples, they're whoops, hold them up better. Sorry. These purples, they're reasonably close. There's certain shadings they're not quite where you want them to be and so forth. But, I'm not going to go mental about it. The reason I wanted to buy the swatch book, by the way, is because I did go mental over the color we were using. And if you ever look at the Human Computing logo, it's in a color called Reflex Blue, which it turns out we were asking for this color and we were getting this color when it was printed. And I was like, jerks, what kind of half-assed bullshit printing service are you running here? And I was really quite cross until I got schooled by the ancient print guy up there about how 4-color works. And then I went out and bought a very expensive Pantone print book, that I learned to shut up about stuff like that. Anyway, but one thing that you'll also notice about these things, and this is actually pretty fun, is when you get into the oranges. So on the left here, these are the spot colors. Some lovely oranges. Look at their process equivalents on the other side. Those are ghastly oranges, which is to say, if I'm trying to print orange juice packaging and I want to make it look really lovely and inviting, like a fresh squeezed Florida orange, it can't be done. There is no 4-color process orange that's a beautiful, bright, saturated orange. It can't be done with process printing. So what they always do if you're printing an orange juice package, and this is something that once you see it, it will drive you crazy till the end of your days, is they print it using what's called spot process, which is they say, okay, well, right, we've changed our mind. We're not going to print this like a fork, like everything else, like this, like this color of this comic book. This is all known as 4-color because what they do is they print 4 plates for everything. And between all those 4, they can render every beautiful color you see on here. Except that if you were really staring at the oranges, you would notice that none of them are orange juicy orange. So if you want orange juice packaging, you want the orange to look delicious, and you want the green on the leaf around it to look vibrant. What you do is you go and you pay your graphic designer to design a completely different package, which has a spot orange color, which you're going to say, I want orange 73. You're going to give it the Pantone color of orange you want, and you're going to say, and I want a green leaf number whatever for whatever the green of the leaf is, and you're maybe going to have a black, for the label, and you maybe blow for one of the color. It's probably like a 3-color job, which are things they do. At which point, what they will do is they will set up the job like that. Everything that's meant to be orange. The print the printer will literally, has a big bucket full of orange 73, and he will scoop it onto the printing plates. He'll let them roll. He will run the orange plate. He will he will loop the clean the whole thing down. He will spray on, he'll glop on all the appropriate green stuff, print the green plate, run the same material through, print the green plate, and then when he's all done, he'll print the black plate on the whole thing, and he'll say, "There's your box." But anyway, that's a 3-color process. Anyway, but the thing I meant to say about the whole thing was the other thing of ancient, staring at print job stuff that I have, because we used to do a lot more, printer printing than we do these days. I think everyone did. It used to be when we send a newsletter out, it would go through a 4-color process and it would be mailed out to everyone. If you guys are comic-based customers from way back in the day, you might have some of the mailings that we sent you from like back in ComicBase 3, which were lovely jobs. We're very proud of them. We proof them to all high ends, and because they would cost us thousands to just print the damn things up. Anyway, but if you were to sit there, this is a loop, and what it's meant to do is you're meant to stick your eye right down there like this on it, and if you do that, you can stare at every tiny little pixel that's on the page. And when you do that, what you'll discover is they're called rosette patterns. Is that all the little dots, they form this squidgy little grid. They're spaced, closer or further apart from each other. It's a lot like if you guys ever seen, what's K? Who's the guy? Is the artist? He does all these like pastiches of old romance covers. He kind of took the pop art style of Sunday comic books and turned it into a shtick. Artist starting with K. And first guy in the chat to get, I will call out but anyway, but you can take that kind of like that dot pattern thing that's going on with Sunday comics. You see it very bad because they print Sunday comics with the the lowest possible line screen on the crappiest possible papers. That's why everybody knows what the dot pattern looks like. But they actually turned into like a pop art movement in the 60s, I believe, or 50s and 60s. But anyway, the name's right here. Roy Clint, is that it? Something about that feels a little wrong. But anyway, Mike Beam says Clint, but maybe it's someone else. Roy Lichtenstein. Sorry, I threw you off with the K thing. That was me. My bad. But anyway, okay, I'll get to Brian Stowe. I'll get your question as well. But anyway, but if you look at that thing, just imagine the much smaller dots. That is what you will see through the loop if I stare at the cover of this cover here on when viewed very high. Your scanner, if I set my scanner to scan it, because a lot of people's scanners could scan at like 3,000 dots per inch. I mean, it's crazy what the photographic technology can do. But what you'll discover if you really stare closely at it is there's no there. You're staring at rosette patterns that don't really look like solid colors. It's a printing trick, because we're taking all these 4 colors, the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, we're layering them over each other in various different screens, and the combination, when we step back from it a little bit, looks continuous, but it isn't really. And so when you're scanning at too high a resolution, what you're really doing is you're asking your scanner to go look at all the space in between all those things and all that kind of thing, and then to basically fuzz it out and interpolate what could have been there if you were just making it up. But you're basically inventing pixels. So we can do that digitally anyway. We can do it better than your scanner can do it just in Photoshop. So don't. It's you don't need to. I mean, it feels good that I've got an 8,000 DPI image or something, but you're not fooling anyone. It's not really bigger. It's just you've just invented more pixels where there's no resolution there. So there's really no need. So I guess that's what it'll all come down to. All right, so people talking in the chat here. Let me switch over to this computer so I can scroll the chat. First of all. Oh, good Lord. It's a lot of talk. Yes. Okay, Deadpool did not find did find the ComicBase parent picture folders. Okay, got that. All right, so I think I'm trying to get the conversation in some kind of sensible order. So let's see if I can get it. So yeah, easiest just download the pictures. I definitely agree with that one. Oh, Brian Stewart, very good point. Be sure do not drag your pictures folder to a OneDrive location. Oh boy, how is that important or not? Yes. So OneDrive, as you guys know, installed by default on Windows, a lot of people's Windows installations, especially if you're using Windows Pro. Microsoft's been more and more futzy is not the right word, forceful, forward in trying to get people to install OneDrive to the point where they don't even ask you in many cases, depending on who, where your install disk came from. But in many cases, what they'll do is they'll actually make it so your documents drive, your personal documents drive, is automatically mapped to OneDrive. You do not want your pictures in OneDrive. It's because you'll blow it out instantly. It will suck. It's no fun. But which, by the way, is one of the reasons that they typically don't map the public documents on your machine to OneDrive, which is one of the reasons that we put pictures by default in the public folder, not the personal folder. So that's a thing. All right, so let's see here. 3840 pixels tall is my standard final image after scanning 600 DPI these days. Yeah, Brian, I mean that's fine. It's perfectly perfectly good size. I like 3840. 3840 actually in 4K refers to the width, not the height. It's 4K is 2160 tall, but comic books are this way, and hey, sometimes you get a gatefold cover, right? So when we deliver them at 4K, we deliver a image that's max 3840 in any dimension. To your monitor, and that's what we'll put down to you. We store them in whatever dimension we've got, but anything, even if you've got the 4K edition of ComicBase, we don't serve up anything higher than 4K. The nice thing though is because when we're serving them up on demand, we are not limited by disk size of anything. So our servers have enough space, but because we don't need to rely on your disk having infinite amounts of space. We actually did play around with the idea of having like 200 gigabyte, I was XL Blu-ray, drives when that was threatening to be a thing and so forth. We looked into it, and in the end, we found a better solution. I mean, I'm very much happier with the idea that like internet speed has come along enough to fill that gap, so you don't need to occupy a jillion gigabytes of your drive to do anything. So I'm really liking the system we've got right now. But the other thing we've got is even when we had all the space in the world on Blu-ray drives and stuff like that, well, it felt like all the space in the world. It turns out it's not, and we'd have to ratchet up the compression levels so they would fit on a 50 gigabyte drive. So we did two 50 gigabyte drives. They're typically 46 gigabit because people who make disk storage like to cheat. It's what they do is when you ever wondered why is my 50 gigabyte drive, why does it only hold 46 gigabytes of real data, is because the people who do selling you discs and things like that, they like to advertise really large numbers, and so they say 50 gigabytes, so that's 50 times 10 to the power of whatever giga is, and that's it. The people who do computers, on the other hand, have defined, so when you look at operating systems, they don't say it's times 10 to the power of that. They say it's 2 to the power of that thing. So, in other words, it starts down with the K. So a K to a disk manufacturer is 1,000. To a computer guy, it's 1,024 because it's 2 to the Lord, what does that make it? The eighth power or something. But you're always wanting to, when your operating system, the computer software is always reporting the 2's number, which is always a little bit more. And your drive vendor, because he's just trying to sell you a hard drive, is always reporting the 10's number, which is quite a bit less. And when you're talking about very large numbers, it winds up being quite a bit less. And so 50 gigabyte Blu-ray only holds really 46, as the computer guys would refer to it, 46 gigabytes of actual data. But anyway, even when you have that much data to play with, if you've got 1.1 million pictures to squish on it, we got to squish them pretty hard. We got to squish them hard enough that that's not actually how I like to get the pictures. So anyway, I definitely would suggest, if you want the highest quality for anything that you actually do look at, let them download, because when you download them, I think we serve them up at like 50% image quality. I mean, they look fantastic. Whereas I think if we put them on the physical drive, I think they get served up at some like 18% image quality. And it's, I mean, they look good, but if you're looking closely at them, you can definitely see where the problems are in the image, artifacting and so forth. All right. So, let's see what else here. Brian Stewart is still looking for a replacement for the all-in-one printer. Supports 11x17 scans within a good price range. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that one. What we have, I've got a thing which I got on the recommendation, I believe, of Steve Dazinger. I think he's in the chat right now. It's called a V-Scan, VIISCAN. Before that, I had a really ridiculously expensive Epson, like 10,000 XL or 15,000 XL. It was a SCSI scanner, if you guys can even believe that one. I mean, like SCSI, like the ginormous interface that was like this big. But I want to say that scanner back in its heyday cost like $2,500. It was crazy, but that's what we used to use for scanning tabloid things in the office. And then I think at the beginning of COVID, when I first started doing the live stream, I got hip to I'd switched to other scanners since then, but I got hip to this V scanner. I want to say it was like $300, $400, $350, something like that. Fast as hell, tabloid. It'll do 11x17 scans, and it costs next to nothing. So yeah, definitely, I'm very happy with that one. So, and thank you for the people who recommended that one. All right, so different kind of PSA, by the way, our courtesy of Ahmad. First of all, number one, if you like this sort of thing, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, please. It does help us a lot. And also, don't forget there's ComicBase message boards at forums.comicbase.com. And there is also a dedicated thread on the message boards where you can request live stream topics plus demos. And I'm reading these rather literally. I should put more personal flair into it, but I'm lacking right now. I apologize for that. And also don't forget that there's the torrent link for Andre's world famous ComicBase cover catalog under news and journal discussion. Andre, I haven't talked to you for a while, man. If you're in the chat, please ping me up. It's we should chat. All right, so I think we've come to the idea that it was Roy Lichtenstein, and someone pointed out that it's I think someone said that, yeah, I thought you were talking about John Lustig's Last Kiss kind of thing, where he's actually riffing on the Roy Lichtenstein, riffing on the old romance comics of the 50s. So go figure. All right, and Chris says I bought the ComicBase V1 CD-ROM the other day. V1 CD-ROM would have made it like version like 1.3, 1.2, something like that. At one point, I want to say, was it? Might have been 3 or 4. God, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the thing. I literally would have to go to my own file copies of that one to remember it. But wow, that's pretty cool. Bought it from me to show in Philly. Nice. All right, so finally, the Windows external drive is slow, but my pictures folder is now 158 gigs, 1.131 million images. Slowly adds up over the years. Right on. All right, let's see. And Greg says, a few years back, I provided some of the scans of a few things that Marvel's collected editions folks. They asked for those scans to be 600 DPI, partly so they could use them for oversized things like omnibus books. I mean, you can, but it's just a question of did you want your barcode scanner to be doing the interpolation, or did you want Photoshop to be doing it? And honestly, Photoshop's so damn good at this point. I think it does a better job. That being said, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But anything, I mean, 300 DPI is high. A 300 line screen is as high as I've ever heard of anything that's been conventionally printed, which means 600 DPI. So as far as think of the nicest art print you've ever seen, that might have been a 300 line screen print. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they use at the Bureau of Printing and Engraving when they do the dollars, but I'd be shocked if it was anything higher than 300 DPI. I'm sorry, anything higher than 600 DPI. But yeah, anything over that, I know your scanner goes higher, but give it a break. You don't need it. Just let Photoshop do the rest. It's all cool. All right, so let's see here. And we're reminiscing over expensive Scottish things. And Dr. B says, my flair is lacking. Well, yes, because I only want to do the minimum around here. I have no flair whatsoever going on here. All right. It says 1994 Master Edition. Wow. That actually might have been like a 1 or 2. Wow, that is crazy. So that's cool. Yeah, because ComicBase got started. If you guys don't know this, we started Christmas 1992 is when we sold our first copy to a guy who jumped the gun before our announcement because he'd seen us demoing a beta of it back at WonderCon that year and called up and said, "Hey, are you done yet? Can I buy it?" So anyway, so that was the first guy to buy it. Brian Stewart, who I believe is still a customer, I'm sorry, different, yeah. But it was possibly different Brian Stewart, but I apologize. I'm losing my mind, guys. I apologize. But anyway, that's about it, guys. Anyway, with that all said, I'm going to pack it in for now. Wish me luck. Next week, I'm going to be traveling out to San Diego, and we have a lot of cool stuff to show you at the con. Please, if you're yet in Comic-Con whatsoever, please stop by. I would love to see you all there. I kind of embrace different scenarios of suckitude when I'm worried about a big thing. By the way, I'll actually share this one because this is fun. Is you guys have heard of the power of positive thinking? Well, you might not know about another theory, which is the power of negative thinking, which goes like this. So, power of positive thinking is like, no, think about the way it'll be awesome. It'll all turn out that way, and that is great. But let's say you're terrified of something. You have a morbid, obsessive fear of it coming up, and for me, at times that'll be things like a morbid obsessive fear of, I don't know, what if we launched and everything broke and the AV was not there and the place burned down and Comic-Con had riots and just whatever the bad thing is you can think of, and if you're working yourself into a tizzy about whatever the bad thing is, just go ahead and grant the premise. So like, okay, fine. If that happens, now what? And you're picturing your worst fear ever, and then you eventually kind of realize that, well, I guess life goes on. And then you're kind of like, oh, now, okay, so I can move on from that. Then it's a matter of just building up from there, and then you try to insure yourself against all those things. So, but yes, in my darkest possible moments, yeah, we wouldn't be done with the program on time. All the cool demo I've got to show you wouldn't be ready, and it would all break, and the AV gear will glitch, and the AV guy will be watching CNN, E-SPAN instead of projecting the image, whatever the whole thing, and there'll be two people in the audience, and there'll be the bums who wandered out of the gas lamp district, and whatever the thing is, you know what? We're gonna have a great time there, and honestly, I based on past years, I actually think it's going to be a terrific time. So if you can make it, please do. As Ballroom H, 10 o'clock on Thursday. I hope to see you all there, and hope very much to tape it. I'm going to say that is something where, when you do work your way to ensuring the bad thing doesn't happen, the ensuring starts with practice. And I gotta say, I have not had a chance to practice yet, so don't count on a taping thing. Treat the taping thing, if it happens, as a sweet, sweet bonus. But if that happens, then that will be terrific. If it doesn't happen, well, then you should have gone to Comic-Con. And I'll tell you all stories about what happened as I will have remembered it. So that's about it. Yeah, Mel Brooks said, "I hope for the best, expect the worst." No, actually, I expect it'll probably be okay. But yeah, like every once in a while, it is good if you ever do find yourself just because you can get into a mode where you're just terrified. You can get more. We're all human. I mean, we have morbid fears. What if my kid dies? What if my wife is in a car crash? And you're like, oh, and there's a certain point where you should look your worst fears in the face and say, okay, well, what if? And then convince yourself that it would suck, but then life would go on, because life does go on. And then you kind of work your way back to the normal world that we all inhabit. But if you ever find yourself just in the grip of just an absolutely paralyzing fear, that I'm going to say that is a trick that has worked for me. And by the way, the trick, if you're ever worried about roller coasters, and I've told this to my mom and she does not believe me, but she's wrong. If you ever have a morbid fear of roller coasters, preemptive screaming is the key. So I'll explain that when I'm going to leave, but basically, yeah, no, there's a time when I was a kid, I was like, yeah, this seems like it's going up very high and then going down very fast, but then one point I'm riding a roller coaster with a girl that I want to impress, and of course she was on the much harder, weirder, whatever roller coaster that I wanted to ever go to, because I had only gone kind of like the wussy ones then, but this one was crazy. But of course, you're trying to impress a girl, which of course means if you're a guy, there is no backing out of the situation. So I figured, well, of course I'm going to suck this one up, but you can't just suck it up. You have to suck it up with aplomb, because you're a guy, right? And so I figured out this masterful stroke, which is to say, right when the whole ride just starts moving. You've just been fastened your seatbelt. You're going like 1 mile an hour, and you're just about to go into that big long thing to go up. And right at that point, go like you're being a big goofball. And we'll look at it, you're like, he's so funny. What a goofball. Meantime, you're getting kind of like all that nervous, anxious energy out of your system. So by the time you actually do go down the big one at the bottom, you're kind of screamed out, and it's actually suddenly at that point, everything is okay. So if you're ever worried about roller coasters, that is the key, preemptive screaming. All right, guys, hope that helps. I will talk to you all later. Take care. Bye-bye.